Tone development is so important to work with for our young musicians. We've got to be able to get them to grab the string with the bow. Okay, we've got to be able to get them to set the bow and be able to wiggle the string so that they can activate the string and start making tone. We also need to teach our students how to use their weight appropriately, and we need to have them play in an appropriate bowing lane. And when I say bowing lane, what I mean is the relationship from the bow to either the bridge or the fingerboard. A lot of times young musicians will play over the fingerboard, and that's usually due to bow control issues. If they don't have a good bow hold, the bow will slip and start going up to the fingerboard. If our cellos and bass players aren't set up correctly, sometimes they'll play exclusively over the fingerboard, and that's really not going to work for this piece. We've got to make sure they're set up. We've got to make sure that they can play close to the bridge, because most of this piece is played very close to the bridge in order to get it to sound the way it needs to. When students can't play in an appropriate bowing lane, and they also can't grip the string, sometimes that's the same problem, because you have to be able to grip the string so that you can keep that bow put in a bowing lane. Otherwise, if the bow doesn't have any grip on it, it starts to slip and slide around. So we have to establish that grip. We have to get all of our students just to set the bow on whatever string. Start with the D string, just set the bow on the D string, grip the string, and then wiggle the string back and forth without making any sound. When the students are doing this, they should be able to look down and they should be able to see the string wiggling. And that's how we start teaching them how to grab the string so that they can activate it and start making tone. If we look right here at the beginning, it's aggressively quarter note equals 132. If we're playing over the fingerboard, how aggressive are we gonna be able to be? I mean, music that's played soltasto, I'm thinking stuff like, Debussy and this light ethereal music. It's not going to be something that's warrior-like and aggressive and intense. That this is going to require a different bowing lane. The problem is that we can preach to our class all day long, hey, you need to be in a good bowing lane. You need to be in bowing lane 2. You need to be closer to the bridge. We could say it over and over and over again. We can even go out into the orchestra and physically grab the bows and put them where they're supposed to be all the time, just going around fixing. And then they still wind up in an inappropriate bowing lane, and that's a problem. So how do we get them to where they have to play in the correct bowing lane? And how do we develop some accountability for that? Well, the best way to do that is long bows. And the longer the bows, the better, because it's going to make them have to grip the string. It's going to make them have to use their weight, particularly in the upper half of the bow, where a lot of cellos and bass players especially don't like to play. But hey, in 14, they're gonna have to play up there. Otherwise, it's gonna not work at all. So maybe start with a metronome, quarter note equals 100, and just have it beat quarter notes. Have them start at the frog, press, grip the string, change the shape of the camber of the bow, change the shape of the string. Have them bow start with 12 counts down and 12 counts up, and we want them to be able to keep their grip all the way from the frog to the tip of the bow, and then back from the tip to the frog. The entire time, they should be able to continue to bend that string, change the shape of the string, change the shape of the bow, and keep their weight and keep their grip from frog to tip. If they can't do that, we're going to have them lean more into the instrument, get their weight on the string. We're going to have to teach them to grip more with the bow, not with the right hand, with the bow, to wiggle that string. When we're doing these long bow exercises, they're just moving their bow down 12 counts and up 12 counts. So they have to be in the correct bowing lane, because what else are they going to do, right? It's not just, hey, can you count to 12? And I like to have them play fortissimo all the way to the tip and see if they can keep that dynamic all the way to the tip of the bow and then back. That's going to help develop some accountability and some of the fundamentals that are required to make this piece sound authentic. If we don't have an orchestra that can grip, they can probably have an okay performance. You look at some of these melodies and I mean, it's not going to fall apart if they have good rhythm and everything, but it's not going to really give the character and the quality that this piece deserves. And so if they want to make it into a special performance, they got to learn that technique. Hey, do you guys know about rosin? A lot of times when I go visit other schools, most of the students either don't have enough rosin on the bow or haven't rosin their bow since they bought it, which is also not having enough rosin on the bow, but you get the idea. Students need to put rosin on their bow. They need to take off the old rosin and they need to put new rosin on, especially for something like Ablaze. Where they're going to need to grip the string. If you're driving a race car and you have tires without any tire tread, that's not going to go well. You're not going to be able to corner very well. You're not going to be able to take off very well. You're not going to be able to stop very well. The tires are the driver's connections to the road, okay? And your bow hair is your connection to your instrument. And that bow hair had better be in good shape and it had better have rosin on it, or else you can't be a race car driver. And in this piece of music, you got to be a race car driver in some spots. If you're a soccer mom driving a minivan, there are pieces of music that do that, but not this one. I also want to talk about the eighth notes in Ablaze. Whether they're this pattern here with the quarter, eighth, eighth, quarter, eighth, eighth, or this stuff here like at 26, you're going to have to be able to grip and re-grip the string on all of these eighth notes so that you can articulate. And a lot of the problems that we have with younger orchestras playing this is a lack of articulation. They open too much from the shoulder and they're not really articulating the way they should. They're playing the eighth notes with a little bit too much bow. So what we need to do is teach them how to grip before every eighth note so that each note has its own beginning, middle, and end. And the beginning is created when we grip the string and then pull. That activation force is the articulation, and then we have the body of the note, and then we have the release. And although eighth notes are a shorter rhythmic value, we still need to have a beginning, a middle, and an end on each and every one of them. We're also going to need plenty of grip on some of these bowings here unless you decide to change them. But sometimes we have double down bows, double up bows. Measure 25, for instance, in basses. There's this section here at measure 36 where violas, cellos, basses have to double down bow, double up bow, double down bow. We have to define one note from the next note. These aren't whole notes. They're dotted half note, quarter notes. Now, if we played them down, 2, 3, up, down, 2, 3, up, well, that's going to create its own set of problems because of bow distribution. So the way that they recommend that you bow is down, 2, 3, down, up to hook the quarter notes, which solves the bow distribution problem, but it creates problems with the articulation so that we have to have definition on beat 4. If you've been doing long bows, hopefully they've established that they can grip in the upper half of the bow, which is where they're likely to be on the down bows. And in the lower half of the bow, it should be easier for them. But guess what? There's 2 double down bows and only 1 double up bow. So to be able to re-grab the string in between the dotted half note and the quarter note first requires the skill to be able to play a long bow and maintain the grip into the upper half of the bow. And then it requires the separate skill of being able to re-grab. So let's break this down into 2 steps, right? So let's just start in the upper, let's say the upper third of the bow. Set your bow down, grab the string, see if you can wiggle it, and then learn how to play the last quarter note of measure 36. Okay, isolate that. Then Step 2 is we're going to add the note before it, the dotted half note. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and pause, wiggle the string, make sure you can grab, and then 4. So we're learning how to get to that spot, we're learning how to grip, and we're learning how to play beat 4 with articulation. Students also need to be able to grip on up bows, and there's a lot of places here where students have to grab, play up bow on beat 4 as an anacrusis to the following measure. For instance, here in measure 9, we have this dominant tonic type feature that happens throughout. Students really need to grip on beat 4 so they can generate some tone and then land on beat 1. Now, of these two notes, we tend to play the dominants with a little bit more weight than we do with the tonics because we want to emphasize the stress and relax into the resolution, which helps to build phrases. But if we can't grip, we're not going to be able to phrase very much at all in this piece of music. All right, so now we have tone established. Now let's start seeing if we can apply that tone to specific rhythmic values. I'm going to talk about some of the challenges with the bowings in this piece of music and come up with how I solve some of these problems. There are quite a few ways that you could try to address them, but they're going to have to be addressed because they're going to mess with your tempo if you don't figure them out. So I'll give you some of the stuff that I do. You might have something that you do. The point is that we're doing something and we're not just kind of haphazardly playing through this stuff, or else we are definitely going to drag at 14. We are definitely going to start rushing at 26, 27, when we have the down, up type rhythms. That's not going to go well unless the students know what they're doing. So in the next video, we're going to talk about bowings, and I'll see you then.